Hey YouTube, welcome to episode 11 for my Firewood processor build. This episode is just a couple odds and ends and mostly some solo cutting. Here I'm just putting the new tires on. I finally got them mounted up. The old ones were pretty dry rotted and such from the trailer sitting in the woods for so long. Here I'm putting this was some 12 gauge piping that I had. I'm using this to fill the gap in between the log lift. If you watched the last episode, I was having some issues where if the log went crooked, it seemed like it was going to fall in between the white parts of the lift. So I just used this pipe to fill in that gap. It's somewhat light, but it's thick enough. It didn't need to be too thick because it wasn't really taking any weight. It was just kind of to fill in between. Here's a shot. I mentioned last episode I had my concerns with the chainsaw. It was kind of scary, and this is mainly why. As you can see, the chain gapped away from the bar because the bar I had on was only good for up to a 12 tooth, and I'm running a 14 tooth. I thought the new bar was going to require some modification because the picture of the bar, the end didn't look anything like what I already had, but it turns out it's exactly the same, so that worked out great. I didn't have to do any modifications, just put it on and adjusted it. And you'll see once I get it adjusted up, you'll see that it's much better. I don't feel like the chain is going to fly off anymore, so I was pretty happy with that. I had a few logs already at the house. Plus my dad, he was starting to come down with a cold, so I had to do all this solo. So I don't really have a good gauge of how fast things are going to be. Plus, it's going to take a while to even figure that part out, mainly because of just trying to get the muscle memory down for running the hydraulics. I made a lot of mistakes pulling the wrong levers and such, so but I run a few logs through it here, kind of get an idea. Plus it helped me out to run some more through. I ran into a few issues that I had to address on the fly, but this would basically be my plan: get one log up on the infeed and then have one on the lift. There I had to move that log, and that was part of my concern after building the infeed, was the fact that with those plows it's basically a flat table. I probably should have angled them up some more to try to feed or get everything pushed in towards the chain, but that's not something that would be too hard to fix later on down the road if I wanted to. I mean, as far as fixing it, I wouldn't, like, if I wanted to cut the plows out and start over at that point, or at least on the infeed table, that would be a huge deal. But to just add some pieces to make sure the logs stay closer towards the chain, that part of it I don't think would be too difficult. This is my first cut, so I'm just double checking to make sure the oiling's working. since it was me loading, cutting, splitting, and unloading the splits, I just kind of cut some of that stuff out. Maybe to give, I mean, just watching me stack wood isn't really going to do anything. So maybe give a better idea of how quickly it can go. The saw doesn't quite cut as fast as I thought, or maybe it's exactly where it should be. I'm not really sure. I know the 404 chain is probably a little big, but it was the easiest way to put everything together. I could maybe look into increasing the RPMs on the drive shaft. I go with a little bit smaller pulley on the drive shaft part itself. If you notice in the background, it's starting to smoke. This actually took me a little while to figure out. It's the choke kept creeping closed. Not really 100% sure why. I ended up loosening up the choke cable to give that some more slack. That didn't, it seemed like it worked for a little while, and then the problem kind of returned, and then I ended up finding a much heavier duty spring to put on it. The spring they had on it was very small. It probably worked just fine for the choke cable that used to be on it, but I don't know, with this longer choke cable running over and maybe some vibration and stuff was causing it to put tension and pull the choke closed, but definitely became an issue. And I could tell from the smoking that it was fuel. When I first saw it, I thought maybe something was going on with oil, but eventually I could tell. There, I throttled it down, and I went to walk around. I noticed the choke cable's pulled out a little bit, and I thought maybe I just didn't push it all the way in when I first started it. So I just pushed it back in and thought that would take care of it, but I did notice it was starting to smoke some more. Here I'm just, like I said, I was loosening up the cable to see if it was just too much tension on it. Some other things I noticed, the infeed's a little quick. Like you do have to be careful how far you move the lever. It's definitely fast, which isn't a huge deal. I could have added flow control, I guess, to the infeed, but I thought based on the calculations for the motor and the sprockets and stuff, I thought it would be a decent speed, and I think it probably is. You just got to pay attention that you're not yanking that lever too hard, or it'll definitely jerks the log pretty fast. Another thing I didn't anticipate, when the splitter is running, either the ram's going in or out, you have no other functions that work. And I thought, at least with the ram coming back in, it's a 28 gallon per minute pump. The splitter valve's 25 gallons per minute. I thought there would at least be a little bit left over that you would be able to do some stuff, and I was wrong. Now, that might be just a misunderstanding with hydraulics, and that was one of the main reasons I kind of went with the Power Beyond valve, or the Power Beyond version of the auto cycle valve, but going with the Power Beyond also simplified some other things where all my other valves didn't have to try to compensate for being a 28 gallon per minute pump. So you do have to wait for the splitter to come out and back before you can do anything else. Not a huge deal. It's a 7-second cycle time if it doesn't slow down for a harder split, so not a big deal. If anything, gives me more time to clear splits off if my dad's running the machine, or get the next log on the log lift, stuff like that. So but it's just something I didn't really anticipate. Yeah, I'm still messing around with the choke because I hadn't put the spring on yet, so it is starting to smoke every once in a while. This split force isn't as, it's not as powerful as I thought it would be, and I don't know if that's something set with the splitter valve itself, because I know there's an adjustment. I know that 2 adjustments towards the back end of it have something to do with the detent for the auto cycle, but I know there's a adjustment in the front which I think has something to do with pressure. I'll have to look into it, and I'm not sure if it's even something worth screwing around with, on the off chance it could cause me other issues. So it's mainly only with the 6-way wedge that it seems to either slow down really far or stall out somewhat. But like I said, it might not be a big deal. It might be something I looked into. If you have any opinions on it, feel free to drop me a comment and I can look into it. I don't know if it has anything to do with why I don't have any function beyond the cycle valve, or I just don't have enough volume to have any function. But I would think if the valve's rated at 25 gallons per minute and they make a power beyond, that there would still be a little bit left over to go to run stuff past that valve. Or like I said, my knowledge of hydraulics isn't that great, so I could be wrong there. Another thing I need to do, the splitter tray, the way I tapered it, it actually pushes some of the wood out off, just like that one just did. So I should have just built the sides the same way I did at the end, at the beginning. It would have actually been a whole lot easier if I'd have done it that way. But and then this is my other issue I run into, which I should have known better than to try to get this log in half. I want to do a mark in the infeed tray at my 22 inches, so that if I have a log that's going to put me in a weird spot, I can just cut off the shorter piece and split that up. And most of that short stuff like that, my dad will take, and he burns outside. So then I still keep with my consistent length cuts, and then I don't have an issue where I just spit the log off the end of the infeed and I have to get it back up in there. So that's something I gotta work on before the next time I cut. The other thing I need to do is I have a maul with the back end of it's basically a sledgehammer, and I need to keep that with this machine because in like this instance where I tried to split something that had no right going through a 6-way and get it jammed, it would have been a little easier to get it back out than trying to use another piece of wood. But there's a few things I need to carry on this machine, that way I have them ready and available. I will say though that I love the splitter part. It's the auto cycle is because I can even reach across. While I was doing it by myself, I could reach across, start another split if I had a piece where I had to flip it back in, and then I could stack some stuff while it was working on the split. So it's definitely a nice feature. On a regular horizontal splitter, it would be nice to have, but it'd be a little scary if it's two people, because you definitely got to pay attention to what the other person's doing when you're splitting stuff like that. So the rest of this I just sped up just to get through the rest of these. I kind of gave my example of the cutting. The next time before I cut, I want to do some sort of guarding to keep the sawdust kind of at least away from the engine. It didn't get a whole lot on it from this cutting, but it was enough that it's something I need to pay attention, or at least get something in place for, so that it keeps as much as possible away from it. I really can't do like a chute just because of the way I built the saw and everything that's in the way, but at least if I can put some sort of barrier to keep the sawdust away from it, that'll work out pretty well. One thing I did notice, I can reach, I have to kind of straddle the log lifts where it touches the ground with the front tires, but I can reach all the way to drop logs directly on the infeed, which was actually kind of nice. But I probably cut for about an hour. I don't really know how much wood I cut. I never really kept track of cords or anything like that. So, at least this burn season, all my wood that I'm going to burn is down at the other end of the pasture on those skids. So I'll at least know, I'm going to keep track of how many skids I empty, so that I at least have an idea of what I'm burning in a season. Although we're almost into November and we still having temperatures in the mid-60s, so I haven't even started burning yet. It just hasn't been cold enough. We run the heat pump to supplement when it gets a little chilly at night, but I have not started burning yet. So, but my plan is to try to get it as far ahead as I can, and this machine will definitely help. It has some quirks that I still need to work out. It's functional enough to get me, I think, by for quite a while. And then there's some odds and ends stuff I need to do. But I did 5 or 6 loads of logs I brought in from my buddy's property, so hopefully the following weekend after this, I'll be able to do quite a bit of cutting and splitting, and perhaps even my dad will be able to come down and help out so we can see how fast we can go through some stuff. And if he's up for it, I'll do some filming of that. If not, the next video I'll start working on it now is I'll go over all the hydraulics. Just I don't know if it'll benefit anybody, but if there would have been a video where I could have seen somebody's build where they kind of went into detail somewhat of what hydraulic components they used, it would have been pretty helpful. So I'm going to put one together either way. So I'm not sure how fast I'll get it out, but I'm definitely going to start working on that. So, thanks for watching. If you don't mind, please subscribe. That way you'll know when the next video comes out, and that'll help me build this channel up. I'm amazed at how many people have already subscribed, but I'd love to get to a point where YouTube would start paying me for you guys watching. That'd be great. But thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.